three most important financial variables: interest rate, stock price, and exchange rate. We talk about interest rates in chapters 4, 5, and 6, and stock price in chapter 7. Now we are going to use chapter 20 to talk about the exchange rate. You have learned that interest rate is actually a price. It's the price of money according to liquidity preference theory. And it is also a price of bond according to loanable fund theory. Because bond price and interest rate has a one-to-one relationship. So interest rate is actually the price of money or the price of bond. And stock price is a price of stock. Is the price of stock. So those financial variables are essentially a price. Exchange rate is also a price. Exchange rate is the price of one currency in terms of another. Therefore, the first important thing that you have to know about exchange rate is when you are talking exchange rates, you have to specify two currencies, and exactly two currencies. Okay? So you cannot say US exchange rate goes up. That doesn't make sense. Goes up against what currency? Say for example, here, it is the price of one Canadian dollar in terms of US dollar. Say for example, right here, it says, at this time, around 2008, one Canadian dollar, the price of one Canadian dollar is $1. That is, you use $1 to buy a Canadian dollar. Example like this, say for example, this is British pound. So the price of British pound in around 2007, it is $2 each. So you use $2 to buy a British pound. And this is the price of a Japanese yen. This is the price of the euro in terms of US dollar. As you can see, these exchange rates are not always moving together. Say here, the exchange rate of US dollar against Canadian dollar is going down, but at the same time, it is going up here. That is why you have to specify exactly two currencies. Because one exchange rate goes up, the other one, it's possible that the other exchange rate goes down. So the first important thing is you have to specify exactly two currencies to talk about an exchange rate. Appreciation and depreciation of a currency. If a currency rises in value relative to the other one in this exchange rate, then we say this currency appreciate against this currency. If the value of, say, US dollar falls against Japanese yen, then we say US dollar depreciates against Japanese yen. If we define the exchange rate as foreign currency per domestic currency, that is, say for example, this is the exchange rate of Japanese yen against dollar. We define exchange rate this way. Can we define exchange rate as domestic currency per foreign currency? The answer is yes. So if you define exchange rate as foreign currency per domestic currency, if you see exchange rate like this, listen to me, it's very useful. Always interpret exchange rate like this as you use 100 yens to buy a dollar, or you use $1 to buy 100 yens. Again, this is very useful. Always interpret exchange rate this way. Therefore, if I define exchange rate the other way around as domestic currency per foreign currency, say for example, 1 cent per yen. Are these two exchange rates exactly the same? The answer is yes. Why? Because this exchange rate says you use $1 to buy 100 yens. This exchange rate says you use 1 cent to buy a yen. Are they the same thing? Yes. This exchange rate says you use 100 yens to buy a dollar. And this exchange rate says, therefore, you use 1 yen to buy a cent. Are they the same thing? The answer is yes. So which one is correct? Well, both are correct. They just have different expressions. One specifies exchange rate as foreign currency per domestic currency. The other one defines exchange rate as domestic currency per foreign currency. It's just a matter of taste, a matter of preference. On the newspaper, sometimes you see this definition. Sometimes you see this definition. But it's totally opposite, right? Therefore, you have to be very careful. When you're doing analysis on exchange rate, you have to first know how exchange rate is defined. Otherwise, the analysis will be totally opposite. In this class, in this textbook, we are going to use this definition. That is, in this class, exchange rate is defined as foreign currency per domestic currency. We are going to specify exchange rate this way, not this way. Okay? If we define exchange rate this way, then when exchange rate goes up, alright, originally exchange rate is 100 yens per dollar, and it says goes up, 100 goes up. What is that? Say for example, goes up to 120. What does that mean? That means originally you use $1 to buy 100 yens. Now you use $1 to buy 120 yens. You use exactly $1 to buy more yens. Therefore, when exchange rate defined as this goes up, domestic currency dollar appreciate against yen, foreign currency, because you can use exactly $1 to buy more yens now. Or you can also interpret this exchange rate as Japanese use 100 yens to buy a dollar. Now exchange rate increases to 100 yens per dollar. Now Japanese has to use 120 yens, more yens, to buy exactly $1. So the value of their yen decreases, therefore decreases against dollar. Therefore, foreign currency depreciates against dollar. What is the effect of change in exchange rate on the economy? Let me give you an example. Say for example, domestic currency appreciate. That's exactly the example that we just went through. Say domestic country is US. So US dollar appreciate. That is, US dollar goes from 100 yens per dollar to 120 yens per dollar. So dollar appreciate because you can use $1 to buy more yens now. Domestic goods, what does US produce? Say F-150. Now, who produces F-150? Who produces F-150? Ford. Ford is a domestic company, right? F-150. In the US, say US Ford price F-150 at $30,000. So if you want to buy an F-150 in the United States, you pay $30,000. Then what is the price of F-150 at Japan? Well, Ford priced F-150 at $3,000. Therefore, they are going to price F-150 at $30,000 in Japan as well. But Japanese do not have dollars. They have to buy $30,000 to buy this F-150. Now, originally, the exchange rate is 100 yens per dollar. Then, how many dollars does a Japanese has to buy this F-150? The answer is $30,000. Now, they use 100 yens to buy a dollar. Then how many yens do they need to buy $30,000? The answer is 3 million yens. But now, if exchange rate goes up, US dollar appreciate against Japanese yen, and the exchange rate becomes 120 yens per dollar. Now, how many yens does a Japanese need to buy $30,000 so that they can buy this F-150? They use 120 yens to buy a dollar. Therefore, they have to use 3.6 million yens to buy $30,000 now. Therefore, because domestic currency appreciates, F-150 price goes up in Japan. Goes up from 3 million yens to 3.6 million yens. Therefore, are Japanese going to buy more F-150 or fewer F-150? The answer is fewer F-150. Therefore, are Ford happy? No, Ford is not happy because Japanese are going to buy fewer F-150. Now, let's continue. Again, US dollar appreciate, going from 100 yens per dollar to 120 yens per dollar. Then foreign goods, Japanese goods. What does Japanese produce? Say PlayStation 4. Now, PlayStation 4, it is produced in Japan by Sony. And say, for example, Sony prices PlayStation 4 at 20,000 yen. Therefore, they are going to price PlayStation 4 in the US at 20,000 yen. But you don't have Japanese yen. You have to use your US dollar to buy 20,000 yens in order to buy their PlayStation 4. Now, originally, exchange rate is 100 yens per dollar. That is, you use $1 to buy 100 yens. Now you need to buy 20,000 yens. How many dollars do you need to buy? Do you need to use to buy 20,000 yens? The answer is you need $200 to buy 20,000 yens. Now, if US dollar appreciate against yen so that you use $1 can buy 120 yens, then how many dollars do you need to buy 20,000 yens? $1 to buy 120 yens. How many dollars do you need to buy 20,000 yens? 20,000 divided by 120. That will be 120, 100, 6, $166. Therefore, PlayStation 4 price drops from $200 to $166 in the United States. Are you happy? The answer is yes. PlayStation 4 is cheaper now. Therefore, when domestic currency appreciates, Ford is not happy, is less competitive because F-150 price increases in Japan. Domestic customers, are you happy? Yes, because PlayStation 4 price dropped in the United States. F-150 price increases in Japan. Therefore, when domestic currency, when US dollar appreciate against Japanese yen, the domestic business is not happy because they are less competitive against foreign business. But domestic customer is happier because foreign goods become cheaper now. With the understanding of the definition of exchange rates, the rest of the chapter is to see how exchange rates are determined in the market. We're going to separate the discussion into two parts. The first part is, in the long run, how exchange rates are determined. And the second part is, how about in the short run? The answer is, in the long run, exchange rate is determined by a theory called purchasing power parity. And purchasing power parity is an application of a theory called law of one price. In the short run, exchange rate is determined by a theory called interest parity condition. So now let's talk about the long run first. In the long run, exchange rate is determined by purchasing power parity. And purchasing power parity is an application of law of one price. So let's talk about law of one price first. So what is law of one price? Law of one price means a good should only has one price, no matter where it is. Say for example, if a Big Mac in the United States costs you $3, and this exact Big Mac is sold in Japan for 300 yens, then the law of one price says you should be able to use $3 to buy 300 yens. That is, you can use $3 to buy a Big Mac in the United States, or 300 yens to buy exactly the same Big Mac in Japan. Then you should be able to use $3 to buy 300 yens. Therefore, the exchange rate between US dollar and Japanese yens should be 100 yens per dollar. Now, that's the basic idea. Let me give you a specific example. We want to go through this example because we want to do the exercise again and again. Say for example, American steel costs $100 per ton. Japanese steel costs 10,000 yens per ton. Suppose that there's no trade. So Americans can only buy American steel in US. Japanese can only buy Japanese steel in Japan. And the price of American steel is $100 in the United States. And the price of Japanese steel is 10,000 yens in Japan. That's the setup. Now, let's start trading. That is, US ship American steel to Japan, and Japan shipped Japanese steel to the United States. There's a trick that you can use that will make your life much easier. That is, always assume that to buy foreign goods, you have to buy foreign currencies first, and then use foreign currencies to buy foreign goods. This may sound strange because you don't use Japanese yen to buy Toyota. You still use US dollar to buy your Camry, Toyota Camry. But let's make this assumption. Actually, the importers use Japanese yen to buy Toyotas, and then they sell this car to you, and you use US dollar. So just assume that in order to buy foreign goods, you have to use domestic currency to buy foreign currency, and then use foreign currency to buy foreign goods. So suppose that Japan and the United States start to trade. And if exchange rate is 50 yens per dollar, okay? Then, in Japan, if you want to buy US steel, what do you have to do first? Buy US dollar. How many US dollars do you have to buy? $100, because that's the price of American steel in the United States. So you need to buy $100. How many yens do you need to buy $100 if the exchange rate is 50 yens per dollar? That is, you use 50 yens to buy $1. Now you need to buy 100 of them, $100. Therefore, you will have to spend 5,000. I mean Japanese. Japanese will have to spend 5,000 yens to buy $100. Now, in the US, if you want to buy Japanese steel, what do you have to do first? The answer is buy Japanese yens first. How many Japanese yens do you have to buy the Japanese steel? A ton of Japanese steel? The answer is 10,000 yens. So you want to use your US dollar to buy 10,000 yens. The exchange rate is 50 yens per dollar. So you use $1 to buy 50 yens. So $2 to buy 100 yens. Therefore, you use $200 to buy 10,000 yens. Now, here comes the question. In the United States, if you buy American steel, you pay $100. If you buy Japanese steel, you pay $200. Steel is steel. Which one are you going to buy? You are going to buy American steel because it's cheaper. In Japan, if a Japanese buys American steel, they pay 5,000 yens. But if they buy Japanese steel, they pay 10,000 yens. Steel is steel. Which steel will Japanese buy? The answer is, again, American steel. Therefore, everybody wants to buy American steel. If you want to buy American steel, what do you have to do first? The answer is buy US dollars. Therefore, people in the world are going to buy US dollars in order to buy American steel. When you are buying US dollar by selling your Japanese yen, what happened to the exchange rate? When people want to buy more apples, what happened to the price of apple? The price of apple goes up. If people want to buy US dollars, what happened to the price of US dollar? Goes up. Therefore, US dollar will appreciate against Japanese yen. That is, this exchange rate is going to increase. US dollar is going to appreciate. And you can use $1 to buy more yens. So exchange rate will keep going up until exchange rate reaches which level? This number will go up from 50 to, say, 100. If it goes up to 100, what happened? Again, in the United States, the American steel is $100. In Japan, if a Japanese wants to buy American steel, they have to buy $100. Now, they use 100 yen to buy a dollar. Now they have to buy $100. Therefore, how many yens do they need to buy a dollar? The answer is 10,000 yens. In the US, if you want to buy Japanese steel, what do you have to do first? Buy Japanese yen. How many Japanese yen do you have to buy? 10,000. Now you can use $1 to buy 100 yens. Now you need to buy 10,000 yens. How many dollars do you need? The answer is 100. Therefore, in the United States, if you want to buy American steel, you pay $100. If you want to buy Japanese steel, you pay $100. Which one should you buy? Doesn't matter. In Japan, you use 10,000 yens to buy American steel and 10,000 yens to buy Japanese steel. Which one will Japanese buy? It doesn't matter. Therefore, we reach an equilibrium. So this will be the new exchange rate. That is law of one price. Steel is steel. No matter where it is, they should have the same price. In Japan, both steel have the same price. In US, same thing. Steel is steel. That is called law of one price. Therefore, because of this law of one price, exchange rate is 100 yen per dollar. So this is law of one price applied to steel. You can also have law of one price applied to Big Mac, or law of one price applied to bicycles. So if you apply law of one price to all the goods and services between two countries, then we got this purchasing power parity. That is, purchasing power parity is the application of law of one price to all the goods and services between these two countries. Then purchasing power parity says, if domestic price level goes up, every good, all the goods and services, that's the price of all the goods and services is the price level. If the domestic price level goes up by 10%, and foreign price level doesn't change, so foreign goods are relatively cheaper. Therefore, people are going to buy foreign goods. To buy foreign goods, what do they have to do first? They have to buy foreign currencies. How can they buy foreign currencies? They sell domestic currencies to buy foreign currencies. Therefore, domestic currency is going to depreciate against foreign currency. By how much? By exactly 10%, the increase in the domestic price level. Say for example, if domestic inflation rate is 10%, foreign inflation rate is 6%. Therefore, which one becomes relatively cheaper? The answer is foreign goods. Therefore, people are going to sell domestic currency and buy foreign currency to buy foreign goods. Therefore, domestic currency will depreciate against foreign currency. By how much? The difference is 4%. This is called purchasing power parity. That is, if domestic price level increases by 10%, foreign price level increases by only 6%, 4% less, then foreign currency is going to appreciate by 4% against domestic currency. That is, domestic currency is going to depreciate by 4% against foreign currency. Alright, how can law of one price hold? According to our example, the law of one price will hold if these two countries start to trade, right? So, purchasing power parity and law of one price will only hold if these two countries trade. And trade needs time. You cannot get the furniture from China in 1 second, in 1 minute, in 1 day. No, they have to ship the furniture, and it will take 30 days, 2 months to ship the furniture here. So trades need time. Therefore, purchasing power parity will only work in the long run, not in a short period of time. So what are the problems with purchasing power parity? First, remember, purchasing power parity is the application of law of one price to all the goods and services between these two countries. But these two countries will not produce exactly the same goods and services. Therefore, purchasing power parity may not hold. Number two, in Japan, they produce Toyota. In the United States, we produce Chevy. They are both cars. However, their cars are different from our cars. Their cars last longer. Therefore, not all the goods are identical, including cars. Even though they are both cars, they are not identical. Number three, many goods and services are not traded. Say, for example, it's much cheaper to get a haircut in China. Are you going to fly all the way to China to get a haircut? No. So many goods and services are not tradable. Say, for example, haircuts is not tradable. So if you plot two graphs, one is the exchange rate between pounds and US dollar, and the relative price level between UK and the United States. If purchasing power parity holds, these two lines should be identical. But they are not. They only share a long-term trend, but in the short run, not at all. Purchasing power parity does not hold in the short run at all. So what are the factors that affect exchange rate in the long run? Remember, in the long run, exchange rate is determined by purchasing power parity. And purchasing power parity will hold if we have trades. Why? Because we are going to buy goods that are cheaper. Japanese steel, US steel, we will buy whatever is cheaper. And we are going, if Japanese steel is cheaper, we are going to ship Japanese steel to the United States. So the basic principle of finding these factors is, if a factor increases the demand for domestic goods, then what do you have to do? You have to buy domestic currency in order to buy domestic goods. And you are going to sell foreign currency to buy domestic currency in order to buy domestic goods. Therefore, when you are selling foreign currency to buy domestic currency, then domestic currency is going to appreciate. Exchange rate goes up. Say, for example, if the domestic price level goes down relative to foreign goods, relative to imports, then you are going to buy more domestic goods, and you will buy domestic currency by selling foreign currency. Therefore, domestic currency appreciate. When trade barriers is higher, like a trade war, trade barriers are higher, say for example, higher tariff. Then you don't want to buy imports. You will just buy domestic goods. So your demand for domestic goods increases. Therefore, people will buy domestic goods by selling foreign currency to buy domestic currency. Therefore, domestic currency appreciates. If import demand decreases, that is, you buy domestic goods, then domestic currency appreciates against foreign currency. If export demand increases, that is, foreigners want to buy our export, that means they have to buy our currencies first. Therefore, our currency appreciates against their currency. These four are straightforward. This one is trickier. Productivity. When the domestic productivity is higher, that means it's cheaper to produce domestic goods. Therefore, domestic goods is cheaper. Therefore, people want to buy domestic goods. They buy domestic currencies by selling foreign currencies. Therefore, domestic currency appreciate against foreign currency. So if these five situations happens, domestic currency appreciate against foreign currency. Therefore, exchange rate increases.